How's it going? So today on BK Sport, we have got something brand new that I'm going to be bringing you every single Monday throughout the international rugby season that basically goes over everything around the world. This is the World Rugby Review, and we're going to be talking everything from Europe to Asia, to, Australia, New Zealand, Americas, whatever's going on at the time. We're going to be talking about what's going on and if we think that the rankings basically line up with where I think teams are currently. We all know rankings don't necessarily show exactly where a team is. Let's, for example, talk about Wales right now, who are looking pretty damn well shocking. They're looking very average, and I definitely don't think that they should be where they are. But because of previous results and because of, I guess, other teams around them, they sit pretty high up the rankings. But we'll get into that in just a second, guys. For now, obviously, go down there, hit that subscribe button if you are new around here, because we love our rugby. We do a lot of rugby streams, and very much looking forward to this week's Argentina and All Blacks game. Obviously, last week, the Argentinians beat the All Blacks, and then they're coming off a draw with Australia as well. So that's going to be a very interesting Tri-Nations clash, because the Tri-Nations is actually completely up in the air right now. In comparison, over there, the tournament in Europe right now, the Autumn Nations Cup, is looking quite interesting. It is a little bit shonky because of a few reasons. Obviously, Fiji, a lot of the teams aren't really playing their full squads. But, well, let's get into it. Let's start talking rugby, and let's start seeing what's been going on over the weekend. Alrighty, so just quickly, the world rankings actually get updated every Tuesday. So I probably should do these on Tuesdays, but I do have another video planned for Tuesdays, so I'm doing it on Mondays. Going over the results from the weekend, obviously we had Wales beating Georgia 18-0. We're definitely going to get into that game because 18-0 against Georgia, they didn't look damn well great, the old Welsh, and they haven't looked great for a couple of weeks now, especially when they got flogged by Ireland. But we'll get into that in just a second. England beat Ireland as well, 18-7. Portugal beat Brazil, 30-10. Obviously, that's not at the Autumn Nations Cup, but that is effective of the top 20, because I believe that Portugal probably will jump into the top 20 now over Russia. We also do have Italy and Fiji. Now, this game was cancelled, just like last week's Fiji versus France game and next week's Scotland versus Fiji game. Unfortunately, Fiji probably won't be featuring in this tournament due to the virus outbreak, and it's sad because Fiji are a very up-and-coming team. They have some real fast-paced players. They have some real open play to their game that we all know Fiji rugby to have. They're the greatest team in Sevens history, and they're really starting to improve in the 15s game as well. So it is very disappointing that they're not going to be probably playing at this tournament, depending on, I guess, because the way this tournament's set up, they will be last and playing second last to see who officially comes last. But I don't know if they're actually going to get that opportunity. I think they'll still lose that one 28-0. So those results also are very effective of the rankings, because they lose every game by 4 tries, obviously. So it gives the other team a bonus point and obviously the win. So that will affect rankings quite significantly there. We also had Australia and Argentina 15-15. That was a very tight one. That was a very, very damn well interesting game. I know that it wasn't the most enthralling and exciting of games for a lot of people out there, but it was fine, really. I think that obviously there was no tries in it, but I still thought it was quite an enjoyable game. We did stream this one, and we're still having a good time. It was very frustrating as a Wallabies fan from Australia, but it is what it is. This is Wallabies rugby right now. This is Wallabies rugby for the last 20 years, and look, we are definitely making improvement. We'll get into that in a second. And then finally, obviously, Scotland and France won that game 22-15, which was a very, very big game over there in the Autumn Nations Cup. Now, we will start off here with the Autumn Nations Cup, because we can kind of leave that Australian Argentine game for last, because there's the one game over there in the Tri-Nations compared to all the the vast majority of games over there in the Autumn Nations Cup. Now, the first game I want to get into is obviously the France versus Scotland game, because that game had a major impact on who was going to top their group, and whoever finishes first in the group goes and plays the probably more than likely England, as they're going so far. Look, I do want to say that these teams weren't exactly the A grade starters. It wasn't exactly the best Scotland versus France outfits that we could have possibly seen. I think Scotland had a couple more guys out than normal, but I do think that this was quite an even match, and I still think the way with France, how they've been playing in the last year or so, they are definitely much improved, and they're really bringing some pride to the French jersey right now. They are playing unbelievably well. Actually, I think they're in the top 4 right now. Let me just go make sure. I think they're in the top 4. They are actually in 4th place right now. They are still significantly below New Zealand there, about 4 points or so below New Zealand in the rankings, and they're just above Ireland, literally 0.2 above Ireland in 5th. So Ireland lost, so they obviously couldn't jump up. So if France are going to stay in 4th, is what I would imagine. I don't think it's possible for them to jump, and obviously they also won't drop below the Irish after their loss to England. So that's a big win there for France, firstly, because it will separate them from that 5th spot of Ireland. But in regards to the Autumn Nations Cup, that will more than likely lock them up there for the first place. Scotland do obviously get the game off next week, so they will win that game 28-0, get the bonus point. But now France do go to play Italy, and I would safely assume that they would beat Italy. However, last week, Italy didn't actually look too bad. They were very close to beating Scotland, actually. I was very surprised there. Italy have kind of improved somewhat, I guess because there is a lot of chatter about them being removed from the Six Nations. Now, we did have a comment from one of you guys saying that that will never happen, and you're probably right. That might not ever happen, especially considering that the other team that they were thinking about bringing in through that was Georgia, which after this tournament, I don't think it's going to happen because they've scored absolutely 0 points through both of their games so far. But yeah, Italy are actually looking not too bad. They're okay. They did lose the game. I think they lost by about 8 points or 9 points in the end. But I'm definitely a lot more impressed with how they are going. They're a bit more fast-paced now. They've got a bit more actual knowingness about what they're doing, and it's not just kind of going through the big boppers up the centre. They are spreading it. They are utilising the ball on the edges, and they are utilising their ball just in general quite well. So I am very impressed with how Italy are going. Do I think they're going to beat France, though? Not too sure about that. So I'm pretty certain that France have locked up that first spot to more than likely play England after the results for England's favour. I really do think the French are playing well right now. However, like I was saying, Scotland didn't exactly send their A team into this game. It wasn't exactly their best outfit, and it still was basically a kicking struggle of a game. It still was basically a game that was all about kicking your penalties and getting your field goals. Now, obviously, we do know that to be rugby, the game of rugby. People complain about no tries being scored in the Australia-Argentina game, but rugby is a take the point on offer kind of game, so it makes sense. But I just didn't really see the finished product of what you would imagine a 4th placed ranking team would be in France against Scotland. So it does leave me wondering a little bit if they are actually as good as their 4th place ranking. But this Autumn Nations Cup just hasn't really been that enthralling. It's kind of been like a B-grade Six Nations if you think about it, especially considering Fiji aren't playing and Georgia are just absolutely shocking right now, and just most of the teams aren't really playing well at all. It's pretty average rugby right now across the board. Even England, when they're winning their game, they haven't looked that great. They haven't genuinely looked that great. Ireland have looked pretty average. I know they beat Wales in the first game, but holy damn, that was because Wales genuinely, where are they ranked right now, actually? Where are Wales ranked? They're ranked in 9th. Yeah, geez. They probably should go out. They probably should drop out of the top 10, to be honest with you. They're not going to, though, because Fiji... Yeah, look, I definitely think... The thing is, Japan's not playing right now. Now, I think the Wales... They're probably fair enough in 9th. I think they're probably fair enough there. They're just below Argentina. I think Argentina definitely are better than Wales right now. I think Wales... I honestly think Fiji would have beat Wales if they played them in this tournament. Japan would have given them a solid crack. I probably would put Wales out of the top 10. I know that they're not going to be out of the top 10 because they just beat Georgia. They won't go above... They could go above Argentina. I'm not too sure. They might just, or they might just finish below. They're only about 0.4 away from Argentina on the points ladder from being in 8th. Obviously, Argentina will get some points for the draw. Not many, though. Scotland, 82.28, so they won't jump them. Look, I really don't think they should be jumping Scotland, and I don't think they should be jumping Argentina. I think if Wales do end up going above, then that is pretty unfair on how teams are actually playing right now and how teams are actually shaping up. Let's specifically talk about Wales. Let's specifically talk about the tournament so far. Last week, they got smacked by Ireland. Now, we did stream this game, and I said that, they're still a pretty good team, but they just had absolutely no second option for one. The Irish played pretty average, very average, and yet romped them home in the end. And Wales were okay off the line-out. They had a pretty good set-piece play, but they lost every single line-out, which was the issue. When they won their line-out, they were actually pretty good from the set-piece. but they literally lost a good 5 of their lineouts. I can't get you the stats right now, but they lost a big chunk of their lineouts. So that was an absolute massive loss, a massive issue there for the Welsh, because when they did get their lineout right, they looked pretty good off it. But when they didn't, they lost the ball every time. It was very frustrating. As a Wallaby, I was frustrated. I couldn't care less, but I was very frustrated in that. It's like, dude, come on, man. Like, really, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You throw the ball straight, and you don't let them know exactly what you're doing. Simple as that. Bingo. No, too hard for them. So that was one positive that I did get out of them, that their ability for their set pieces was actually quite quality, but they couldn't even get their set pieces right to the point where they get the ball off a simple lineout. The defense was pretty okay as well. I didn't really have too many issues with that originally. They did still end up conceding like 25 points or something like that, and they did get beaten quite convincingly, and that was to a subpar Irish team, like I just said. But I think the defence for Wales was still there, but they just had absolutely zero attack. I can't remember seeing a quality attack from them in that game. And then we get to Georgia game where they win 18-0, and that was just terrible. Georgia haven't scored a single point in this tournament so far, so you can't even look at that team and think, oh, well, okay, well, they kept them to 0. Yeah, so did England the week beforehand, and they won 40-0. Wales won 18-0, and that 18 came from a try on the final after the 80th minute, I believe. So it was actually 13-0 for 80 minutes of that game, and that's just not acceptable when it comes to this Wales team that has been so prolific in recent years, and they've been looking really good, but obviously they've just had a massive downfall right now. And you know, there is excuses considering the global situation. There is excuses considering this is somewhat of a B-grade tournament right now. But I know the Welsh are a very proud nation when it comes to their rugby, and they would not be happy with what's being put on show right now. I quickly want to brief over the Portugal-Brazil game because that does include top 20. Normally, I won't include teams that are outside the top 20 in this list, but I do believe Portugal will jump into the top 20 now, above Russia, who will drop down to 21st now. So I think, yeah, that win for Portugal is quite big. They'll still be behind Romania and Uruguay and Spain and USA, who aren't exactly great teams. We all know with rugby, it kind of drops off quite significantly after that 15th spot where Samoa is, and Samoa's not exactly that fantastic anymore either. So yeah, Portugal making movements there. Really not too sure how they are in general, but obviously they got that win, so that's quite a big one for them. Anything else really to talk about in regards to the Autumn Nations Cup? England obviously beat Ireland. Yeah, we'll talk about that game. I definitely haven't been too impressed with the English either. They've won both their games. They won their first game over Georgia 40-0. We streamed this game, and the whole time I was quite disappointed with actually how they were playing. They didn't even romp home in the end. They were still up 26-0 at half-time, and then I think the second half they put 14 on the board, but England, yeah, they won that game 40-0, and fair enough, they deserved to win that. They should have been winning that game by 60. They should have been up by a lot more at that first half, even though it was 26. But obviously, they didn't put it over the line, and they just didn't really have that option that we would be used to, and they weren't really romping through the Georgians like we would expect. So people look at that 40-0 scoreline, and they're like, "Wow, okay, they flogged them," and they did flog them, and it was a fair result. But I think that England really should have been winning that game by a lot more with the opportunities they had. Georgia looked absolutely terrible, and yeah, that's just how it is, really. So we move into the England versus Ireland game. Ireland come off that win against Wales. I did say during that stream that I was really looking forward to seeing how Ireland would back up after that unimpressive win versus the Welsh, and they proved me right in the sense that they were unimpressive in that win against the Welsh, and they lost this game by, what was it, buddy? It was by 8 points or 12 points. They lost 18-7, so 11 points. Very unimpressive, and I think that Ireland try came pretty late on as well. So, look, it wasn't a great game there by any means. The English deserved winners. Both teams have a long way to go to improve what they're putting on show right now, and hopefully Ireland can get back to it. More than likely, England do win this tournament. I would safely assume that even though they're looking unimpressive, they're probably the best of the unimpressive bunch, because pretty much everyone is in the same boat right now. So I do think the English beat Wales next week, but the Welsh are still a pretty good damn well team when it comes to playing against England. Their play styles are very contrast, but they suit Wales in comparison when they're going up against each other. But as I've been saying, Wales are damn well not good at the moment. So this will really show if England are average and yet still the best of the European nations, because they are ranked second right now. I don't know if they can jump South Africa into first by the end of this tournament, because South Africa are 94.2, England 88.42. That's not including the win over Ireland, which will give them a significant chunk there, because Irish obviously are a very good team. Not a significant win, but a decent enough win. So that will obviously move England away from New Zealand there in third on 88.17. They'll probably jump 89, 90, so they'll still be 4 behind. They could honestly jump, I'm not too sure. South Africa obviously aren't playing any tournaments right now before their Lions tour. So yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting with the old English there. Now let's move over to the Pacific, the Tri-Nations. Now Argentina and Australia drew 15-15. A hard game to read this one, but the pivotal point that we're going to take out of this is that it gives New Zealand back favouritism to win the Tri-Nations. They won their first game in an absolute romp, which is actually going to cost Australia in the end, really. The one game in Sydney is going to cost Australia winning this Tri-Nations, in my personal opinion. The second game, they lost to, and they got the bonus point from that as well, FYI. That is a key point here. New Zealand ended up losing that second game to the Wallabies, but they got the bonus point for only losing by 2 points, and then they lost to Argentina and no bonus points there. So they're on 6. Argentina, they come and they play the All Blacks. They won that game, and then this game obviously is a draw. So they're on 6 points, and the Wallabies, on the other hand, they didn't get any bonus points from their game 1 loss because they got flogged. Second game, they got their win against New Zealand, and then the draw against Argentina. So they're on 6 as well. So everyone's on 6. But Argentina have 2 games left, Australia has 1 game left, and the All Blacks have 1 game left, and that's this week against the Argentinians, which we will be streaming. If the All Blacks win that game, I'm pretty certain they lock it. If they get a bonus point, if they win that game and get a bonus point and prevent Argentina from getting a bonus point with losing by less than 7, I'm pretty certain New Zealand lock it up to win the Tri-Nations. If the Argentinians win and get a bonus point, they pretty much locked it up too, because they would need to then just prevent Australia from getting a very huge, big win over them by getting a bonus point as well in that final game next week. So really, the advantage right now is with the All Blacks, but it will come down to bonus points here. I really think that that huge loss for Australia against New Zealand in the first game of the Tri-Nations is going to be the significant one, and the one that costs them this Tri-Nations. I think New Zealand probably get this, to be honest with you. The Argentinians have been grindy. You know, they looked really good. They looked nearly perfect in that first game against the All Blacks, but the game against the Wallabies, they weren't exactly impressive. Australia just definitely wasn't. Australia are looking a little bit shaky, but then again, we've been looking shaky for 20 years. It was a tough one. It was a tough game. Wet conditions. Reece Hodge had the chance to win it in the end and missed the kick. He needs to be slotting these, crucial kicks. That's now twice now in the past 5 weeks that he's missed the go-ahead winning kick at the end of the game. Do lay some blame with Michael Hooper not taking the couple of extra points. Obviously, rugby is a take-the-points game, and he kept kicking for the line-outs. Now, I do usually back in a team to go for the try and back in your attack. But this game, Hooper took the liner option, I think, 3 times instead of taking the penalty. That obviously is minimum or maximum 9 points. Sorry, maximum 9 points that you lose there. And the game was a draw at 15-15. So, that tells you everything you need to know. I think New Zealand probably do win this game this weekend, and they probably do lock it up. I'm not too sure if they're going to score 4 tries, though. Argentina are pretty decent defensively. I think the Wallabies, they went over the try line twice. It just was disallowed twice, unfortunately. The All Blacks will be reeling. They have lost 2 games in a row. I'm not too sure if they're going to lose 3 games in a row. I can't remember ever when they've lost 3 games in a row. The last time they lost 2 in a row was back in 2005, I think it was. So I'm not too sure about 3 games in a row. They are a rebuilding team as well. There's a lot of teams right now, because you've got to realise that last year was the World Cup year. So this is the year after where teams are really starting to restructure and redefine their team in a positive light to get to that World Cup in 2023 at your perfect stage, your perfect area. And so that's the issue with after World Cup year. It's always going to be quite average rugby in general, because they're at the beginning stages of their progressive run towards that 2023 Rugby World Cup. So that's why it's going to be very interesting to see how these tournaments do go. They are blooding a lot of young guns. The Wallabies have been blooding young guns this entire tournament all the way through. Dave Rennie is the new coach. The All Blacks, they're doing the exact same thing. They're a very young team, and they're trying to rebuild as well. The Argentinians, they haven't played for a year. Most of these teams haven't played for a very long time, and That's the thing, it's a bit of a wild time right now, bit of a wild time, but I think that's pretty much going to lock us up for today. I don't think there's anything really that we need to talk about. Obviously, South Africa have their tour with the Lions coming up very soon, but we'll talk about that when that comes. But I think that's going to do it for today, guys. This weekend, we're going to do pretty much all the Autumn Nations Cups games, except for the Scotland and Fiji game, which has obviously been cancelled. We've also got the All Blacks and Argentina game, which is absolutely massive and crucial to see who is going to win the Tri-Nations for this year. So guys, go and smack that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are about World Rugby right now, what teams are doing well. We do have a video coming out soon about the thoughts on that new Super Rugby format for 2022 with the New Zealand teams, Australian teams, and the Pacific Island nations, and the effects of what happened with Argentina with the Jaguares. We're also going to be talking about the Rugby Sevens in a couple of weeks' time, so definitely hit that subscribe button if you do love your rugby content. We stream everything here. We film pretty much all sports, so definitely hit that subscribe button, and I think that's going to do it for now. So I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.